I finally went upstairs and decided to turn on 60 Minutes, which I had taped. And what a combination we had last night on 60 Minutes. First 20, 25 minutes or so was Vladimir Putin, and the last 15 or 20 minutes or so was Donald Trump. Certainly kept me awake. But I think it's a really interesting place to start. Because if any of you watched it, and if you didn't, I'd urge you to watch the interview with President Putin. Because Barack Obama owes a lot of people apologies for his presidency, but he certainly owes Mitt Romney a big apology from their debates in 2012 on foreign policy. You'll remember that Governor Romney said in that debate that our biggest geopolitical threat was Russia. And President Obama got very snarky with him. And he said, you know, Governor Romney, the 70s have called and they want their foreign policy back. Made fun of Governor Romney. I don't think he's making fun of him anymore. If you sat and watched Vladimir Putin last night, what you realized was that we are dealing with a smart, articulate thug. That's a tough combination, everybody. Because this is not just some guy who's going to come in and throw his weight around. You listened to him last night, you realize he's got a point of view, he's got an approach, and he's feeling good about himself right now. Why wouldn't he? He's been pushing around the President of the United States for the last 7 years. Imagine that today there are Russian soldiers and Russian armaments in Syria in the Middle East. And who are they teaming with in Syria? Iran. How shocking. That in the honeymoon period of this great agreement the president has signed, that Iran is already now teaming with Russia to do what? To support Assad in Syria, who has already gassed and killed nearly 300,000 of his own citizens. And that hundreds of thousands of them are literally running for their lives out of their home country to Europe to try to save their lives and the lives of their children. And then we got the great news today that folks in Iraq are teaming with Iran and Syria and Russia in Syria. You know, after the Yom Kippur War, the United States got Russia out of the Middle East. And for 40 years, we've kept Russia and Russian influence out of the Middle East. It took Barack Obama only 7 short years to give away everything we had fought for 40 years to help to make the Middle East a more stable place. I tell you that because I want you to understand, if you don't already, and in Iowa you probably do, elections do have consequences. It matters who sits in the Oval Office. It matters the attitude and the approach of that person. And Barack Obama has decided, today, as I was getting ready to fly out here, I was sitting on the plane in Newark, heading to Chicago for the first leg of our trip, and I had the unbridled joy of watching Barack Obama's speech to the United Nations. I have to tell you something, I have not seen such a collection of meaningless platitudes. A guy who doesn't understand that the world is literally on fire because of his inaction. Libya is on fire. Syria is on fire. Iraq's on fire. Egypt's under martial law. Israel's threatened like never before, and Iran's moving towards a nuclear weapon. All on this president's watch. And he gives a speech today where he spends more time on climate change than he spends on the global terrorist threat to America and the other free nations around the world. You know, he talked about hope and change 8 years ago. Talked about hope and change right here in this state is where he started it. If we had known what hope and change really meant, he would have never been elected by any of the American people.